So, getting in the manga, like I mentioned in my Berserk video, was something that took me years to get into. Due to the fact I never understood why I could never really get in the manga. It was until I started realizing the most important aspect for a story for me personally, much later on in my life, with a funny little game called Final Fantasy VII, which is music. Music for me is one of the four great pillars of what makes a good story. The other three, if you are wondering, are good and interesting characters with great designs, a good engaging plot, doesn't even have to be unique, just needs to have something that can make it stand out, and world building. These four things are something that I love in stories. Once I realized that I love music while consuming a story, manga became a lot easier to enjoy and read. Well, sort of. Like, there were inconveniences to the way I read manga, but that's just a me thing. I prefer to listen to some kind of OST, whether that is the official soundtrack, would only happen if the manga that I'm reading has an anime or not. But more often than not, there is one single composer that I listen to more than most, and that is the absolute behemoth, that is Shiro Saigasu. This guy has made music for absolutely great series known as Bleach, Neon Genesis Evangelion, the rebuild of Evangelion, Magi, Black Bullet, and, I know even though it's bad and awful, 2016 Berserk, including the three Golden Age films. The big three of his works, in my opinion, are Berserk 2016. I know they were terrible, but the music was just so good. His next is the rebuild films. The soundtracks are just, oh my god, dude. Some of the soundtracks are just some of the best music I've ever heard, period. But last is my favorite anime ever, as you know, Bleach. Some of his work in Bleach is just absolutely perfect, and I'm super excited to see his work in the upcoming 1,000 Year Blood War anime. And honestly, I think that's what's going to be my favorite part about the 1,000 Year Blood War anime. Now, when I read manga, the soundtracks for these three series are more often than not what I am listening to. Now, after I made this discovery of why I couldn't get into manga was so much easier to get into due to the fact I could now feel the emotion in the scene. You see, for me, music is the best way to convey to the audience what emotion the scene should be having. And another thing, of course, is acting or voice acting. That's why sometimes I even have anime above manga, only sometimes, very rare occasions that I do, is because of voice acting. In fact, right here, look at this clip from this anime where I think the voice acting is just absolutely perfect.
裏腹キスケ私はお前を別除するお前ほどの頭脳がありながらなぜ動かないなぜあんなそれは敗者の理論だ勝者とは常に世界がどういうものかではなくどうあるべきかについて語らなければならない私は
And since manga doesn't have voice acting, the closest thing that you can actually get is the way the character is drawn or illustrated in that moment. And on top of the fact you have now emotional music on that, the experience for me is just heightened tenfold. But it's not just emotional scenes either. One of the biggest things for me in the manga I read is actually fighting scenes, especially because I read a lot of shonen. Now, when a fighting scene is happening, one of the songs I listen to the most is from an anime called Naruto. Now, the music in Naruto is just amazing, but the song that I specifically single out is Heavy Violence. You see, when I was reading JJK, or Jujutsu Kaisen for example, I was listening to this OST a lot, especially when I was reading the best Nujin arc, the Shibuya incident. When I was reading that, I was listening to this OST every second because the song just fits the way Itadori fights. Since he only fights hand-to-hand combat, that just gets me more hyped when I listen to this song. The best fight in JJK, in my opinion, is Choso versus Itadori. The experience I had while reading that would not have been the same if I was not listening to this track. Especially because that fight is mostly hand-to-hand combat. And me, I love hand-to-hand combat the most, especially when the choreography and what I'm watching or reading is really, really good, and it doesn't come across as too fake and practiced. Choso vs. Itadori has one of the best choreography ever from what I have seen. Add upon the fact that when this part of the song starts playing, while they're throwing barrages of punches at each other and everything like that, you just get this sense of feeling because of the song that the entire fight is just a quick back and forth, and nobody really is winning, even if in the fight Choso is dominating Itadori. Then, when immediately after that fight, you have Sukuna versus Gojo, I was listening to one of my top 5 favorite songs by Shirosaisu, Carnage, which was an Evangelion 2.0 You Cannot Advance. Because the song fits Sukuna perfectly in that fight, since Sukuna is a walking calamity and he brought carnage to Shibuya and to Jogo the entire fight, Sukuna was dominating, blitzing, and washing Jogo. Then after that fight, you have him fight he fights this thing, and uses his domain expansion, and on top of that, I was listening to the track. My enjoyment was tenfold of what it could have been. If I wasn't listening to the song, then I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much, especially later on in Shibuya with more fights and just more songs I was listening to. The enjoyment I had was amazing. Right now, for example, I'm currently reading Sakamoto Days. This manga is really good. The fights are actually really amazing, and I've just been listening to a bunch of, especially now, Naruto OST while reading it, and Naruto OST just fits it perfectly. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have trouble getting in the manga, even if you like reading, or even if you don't, I recommend listening to music, whether that just be anime OST, video game OST, or just normal songs, because it might honestly help you read manga. And of course, if you want to try listening to anime OST, I do have to recommend Shirosaisu. And if this works for me, I hope it can really work for you, because I don't want people to miss out on manga just because they just can't, for whatever reason, get into it. Because I know how hard it could be, because especially, right, when you have to wait so long for an anime to come out, especially in next season. Like right now, we're having to wait for us JJK fans. We're having to wait for Shibuya to come out, which is 2023, right? And that could be a very long time, especially when you have incidences like with 1,000 Year Blood War, where that just took years to come out, and now we're finally getting it, right? And if you didn't enjoy reading manga, then you have never read 1,000 Year Blood War, which is a shame, by the way, because it is my favorite Bleach arc. And I think you just need to understand that sometimes you just need to find some way you can get into it. If this video helped you at all getting in the manga, then would you please go down and like the video, subscribe, and comment down below if it really did help.